Hey, good morning everybody, TJ here. Today I'm back out at CAMBER testing the Never Summer V Twin in collaboration with Snowboard Magazine. Let's get into it. All right guys, real quick for reference before I jump into the tech, I'm 5'10", I weigh around 155 pounds, and I'm riding the V Twin today in size 157. Now this is gonna be an all mountain focused board on the Never Summer lineup, and it is a true twin. It runs their triple camber profile, so it has 3 camber sections, 1 under each foot and 1 in the center of the snowboard. But overall it's still going to be reverse camber dominant, but the way that triple camber reacts on the snow with that camber zone between the feet, it kind of creates a larger contact patch that makes it track a little bit straighter and keeps the board feeling just a little bit more locked in, and is going to help us load up a little bit more tension and get a little bit more energy out of the snowboard as well. And speaking of how much energy you might find in this snowboard, it runs their full carbon recluse web layup. So underneath the core of the snowboard, there's a full web of carbon weaved throughout the entire snowboard. You can actually see it through the base. It's pretty rad. So hopefully that adds some nice energy to the board and maybe add a little bit of a dampening benefit as well. Other than that, you're gonna find their power grip side cut. So that's gonna help the snowboard bite down in more firm, treacherous conditions and help keep it feeling more confident and in control in those scenarios. The V Twin also has multiple dampening technologies built into it. So it's gonna help smooth out the ride and reduce chatter and vibrations as you're out there exploring. And it also has a sintered base, which is a harder, more durable base material that's known to be faster compared to an extruded base. You do want to make sure to wax it regularly to maintain a nice fast feel out here. Other than that, I do want to touch on just a couple more things. The core of this snowboard actually has a lot of Paulownia wood built into it. Looks like they tried to pack in as much as possible, which is a more expensive, lightweight wood. It has some poplar in there for reinforcements as well. Down the center of the snowboard and around the edges for durability, with beech underneath the insert packs there. And it has these metal skid plates on both the nose and the tail to help protect these interesting shaped tips that you're going to find in this snowboard. So that's it for a quick tech breakdown. I'm really excited to check this thing out and see how it feels out here at CAMBER. Let's get these laps going. All right guys, we rode through a variety of conditions here at CAMBER today. It was pretty firm and somewhat icy earlier in the morning today, and then just fully thawed out to some spring slush conditions here this afternoon and everything in between. So I think we got a nice test for this all mountain board here. First thing I want to highlight is if you're familiar with the Never Summer lineup, they have another board that's freeride focused called the Valhalla, and this tip shape that you see on the V Twin here is basically the same tip shape as you'll find in the tail of the Valhalla, which is just like a very aggressive locked in freeride board. So this is kind of like an all mountain variation of that board. Not as aggressive, but still a pretty burly snowboard. I mean, flex wise, I'd say it's definitely on the stiffer side of medium. It comes through with some pretty solid stability, but with this triple camber profile, like I mentioned before, it is overall reverse camber dominant, except for that section right between the feet. So you still get that kind of pivot action, and it kind of makes it easy to lift the tail up or the nose up. But as soon as you get to the end of that camber profile, the board just kind of says, nope, stiffens up and comes through with a lot of stability. But those first couple of inches are pretty easy to get that nose or tail lifted up off the snow. But let's get into how this board felt for like flat ground type stuff around here. We got a few flatter sections around CAMBER where it's fun to play around with those types of tricks. And I think that this is actually surprisingly fun for that kind of stuff. I will say that you do want to pay attention to your edges, because once those edges are activated, this board actually comes through with quite a bit of precision. But that reverse camber profile does make it a lot of fun to play around with those presses and things. With how stiff it is, it does make it a little bit tricky to find the balance point, because it's really easy, like I said, and then it just gets very stiff. So you got to kind of adjust your body weight accordingly. You'll get used to it, you know, after a few laps, but those first couple laps for me, I did find it a little bit challenging to find that balance point for those flat ground tricks. But overall, It did have somewhat of a loose feel leaning to the nose and tail. Wasn't too bad swiveling around, and considering this is a somewhat aggressive all mountain focused snowboard, surprisingly fun for that kind of stuff if you're into that. There is a little bit of an adjustment with this snowboard with that triple camber profile to find that sweet spot for pop. But once you figure that out, it actually is a pretty energetic snowboard. I think that this profile does have the best, most natural feel actually for more side hit kind of features where you have that kind of natural swooping transition already that kind of adheres to that rocker profile. Feels like a very natural pop there, but a slight adjustment for rollers and in the terrain park a little bit. But once you do figure that out, it's actually a pretty snappy, poppy snowboard. I think that triple camber and the flex do come through with some nice energy. You know, that carbon is probably helping as well, and isn't something that I think you're going to find is lacking once you do figure out that sweet spot. I was really enjoying taking this park to the park out here today as well. We were kind of hanging out more on the medium line, hitting that triple jump line, hitting some kind of medium to large rail features. And I will say with the flex you're going to find in this snowboard, it's definitely going to be a little bit more jump leaning, but this profile has a bit of a loose feel to it, very quick, easy turn initiation, and allows to get presses, at least a little bit of a press with relatively low effort. Obviously, you're gonna have to muscle it to get a tall press to fight against that flex like I was talking about. But I think that actually makes it pretty enjoyable for jibbing as well. It's not super twitchy or doesn't have too much precision to be working on more techie tricks on the rails. Obviously, you know, not going to be as conducive for that kind of stuff as something like the Proto Slinger on the Never Summer lineup, but still pretty fun for taking park laps. And another thing I really like about Never Summer's rocker dominant profiles in general, and the V-Twin is no exception, is hitting jumps and you're trying to initiate rotation. As soon as you get this board on edge, it just kind of wants to turn really naturally, and that actually has a really good feel for initiating spin on jumps in my opinion, and actually has a nice precise edge to pop off of as well. So I think those two things work together to give this thing a nice feel on jumps, and is a board that you could comfortably step up to some larger features with the stability you're going to find in this thing. Although I will say with the reverse camber that you feel a little bit more outside your feet, it is a little bit easier to go back seat or maybe feel a little bit washy in some scenarios compared to like the recurve triple camber. But overall, I had a lot of fun hitting these park laps, hitting jumps, hitting rails, even trying some more techie stuff. So if that's something you enjoy, I think you can have a good time on the V-Twin in there, although it is a little bit stiffer. So it just kind of rides like that, a slightly more aggressive, more precise style of park board. But one of the biggest highlights for me out here today on the V-Twin is the carving experience, as would be expected with a more all mountain focused snowboard. But there's a few things I want to touch on with this thing that I think kind of characterize how it felt out there on the groomers and exploring the resort. First off, the waist width you're going to find on this snowboard at size 157 is about 25.6 centimeters and a 7.7 meter side cut. So it's a pretty average waist width. It definitely is wide enough to do more aggressive, deeper carves if you have a smaller or average boot size. If you do have that larger boot size like 11 and a half, 12 or bigger, I definitely would look at a wide option of this snowboard, which they do have several of. But overall, this is a fun one for trying Euro carves and those deeper, more aggressive carves. It has a very confident, locked in feel that you can trust out there and really dive into those turns knowing that this board is going to hold on. The side cut's very versatile as well. I think whether you're out there just doing some mellower cruisers or opening the board up, bombing some hills, it's going to have a very natural, comfortable feel to it. But I think one of the biggest characteristics when you're carving this snowboard actually comes from the profile. So, you know, since it does have that overall reverse camber shape, it is very easy to initiate turns. And as soon as you get the board on edge, not only is it very locked in, but it just naturally just wants to turn. It's super easy to arc some turns on this thing. So if you're like a more intermediate rider and looking for something versatile that you can grow into, I think this is going to have a very comfortable feel that you can progress with. And if you're a more advanced rider, it's definitely still something that you can push and put your trust in. You know, whether you're on some early morning firmer groomers or some end of day kind of slushier snow that's a little bit chopped up that you might be sinking into a little bit more. This thing's going to be able to power through those conditions, hold an edge in firm conditions, and just kind of have a beefier feel to it for carving despite the reverse camber, thanks to that flex. The relatively stiff torsional flex, I think it's a little bit softer torsionally than it is lengthwise, which also helps make it a little bit easier to initiate those turns, but beefy enough that it's going to be able to push through some sloppier conditions towards the end of the day and just maintain that confident feel, really regardless of what snow type you end up on. And one last thing I want to touch on regarding the overall feel of this snowboard comes back to this triple camber profile. You know, compared to Never Summer's traditional rocker camber, the Shockwave rocker camber, this profile does want to track a little bit straighter, does have a little bit more precision for you. You can load up a little bit more energy as well, but in more firm conditions, especially, you know, in the park, or if you're doing those butter flat ground type tricks, you do get that swivelly feeling between the feet, which, you know, you can use to your advantage, but sometimes you can kind of get that auto butter. You just got to be a little bit more precise with locking in that edge to stop rotations, but does make the board a little bit more forgiving, a little bit more catch free, and does enhance that butter flat ground experience. So I just wanted to highlight that as well. I found that happened to me a couple times in the park today and doing these flat ground tricks out here. But overall, I would say the V-Twin is a very solid all mountain resort snowboard. Fun for a more freestyle approach to the mountain. Definitely going to be a good one for hunting down natural features, side hits, and like I said before, it's a good time in the terrain park as well. It's got plenty of stability. It's got some good energy once you figure out that sweet spot on how to initiate that pop and get the board to give that energy back to you. So if you're interested in trying something like this out, a board that's going to offer pretty much all the benefits of reverse camber, but just have a little bit of a more locked in, energetic feel, and is designed with versatility and exploring the resort in mind, consider the Never Summer V-Twin. I'd say this is going to be a solid choice for like high intermediate to more advanced snowboarders looking for that kind of board. I hope this video helps you guys out with your decision, and being able to see it out here on snow kind of helps paint the picture of what you might get out of this snowboard. If you do want to read more about it, I'm going to have it linked down in the description below this video, as well as a link to the latest issue of Snowboard magazine. So please make sure to go check that out. Leave any questions you have for us down below this video. And if you got some value, don't forget to drop a like before you leave. Subscribe to the channel if you're new here. I appreciate all you guys. Thank you so much for watching today. Truly means the world to me. Hope you guys are having a great season. I will see you in a new one soon. Later, guys.